What's happening, people? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thought we'd have some deep talks here tonight on the live stream. We're in my doomsday bunker. You can't really see that because of the background, but we are. Kind of see a little American flag behind my head. Isn't that nice? So I put a couple prompts up here behind me. By all means, we don't have to talk about that the whole time, but I feel like maybe that's some good kicking off points for us for some deep conversations. We all like to have those deep conversations, right? If you don't, I not much like talking to you, I guess. In my experience, conversations are very, very shallow most of your life, most of the time throughout your daily life. Whether, who gives a shit, right? These kind of big questions are what I'm really interested in, and a lot of you might be too. But I see a lot of people get on this app and go live and share their opinions and their thoughts on things, and I'm definitely one of them sometimes. And I thought I'd be again tonight. So thanks for joining us here. So with the first one here, there is a divine creator that we are all a part of. Well, I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but I also think it's open to a wide range of individual beliefs, and I think that's important. I think we can break down a lot of these divisions and barriers between us as people, but breaking things down to some first principles that perhaps we all agree on. And certainly with this, we don't all agree on that. However, a lot of the groups that are divided do. And if they weren't so divided, they certainly, even without unification, they're the majority. So there's something to be said for that. But does what the majority thinks make something true? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We know that. But it doesn't make it untrue either. What's up, Dee's Prepper? Welcome to the chat. So, there's a lot of room for individual opinions about these kind of big questions. But I find it interesting that even in kind of more atheistic scientific circles in modern times, a lot of them are kind of coming back around to something that's very similar to a lot of spiritual ideas. I mean, we look at the idea of the simulation theory, if you've heard of that all of existence is a simulation. That would require a creator of that simulation. So I think it's funny that that's kind of a scientific idea based in math and statistics, but yet it brought them back around to this idea of a divine creator. They use a different word to describe it, but it's essentially the same thing. Now, is that because of some innate human desire to create a creator, or it's because of some underlying truth to the nature of everything around us? I think it's the second one. And I guess it does come down to, for many people, is what can you prove? What can you prove? Well, not everything. Certainly not everything. Not everything that's true can be proven 100% to 100% of people. That's always the way it's going to be. And that's okay. That's okay. That's why I think that ideas like freedom of religion and so on and so forth is so important. One of the reasons I think that's so important. Now, when I say that I think about freedom of religion is important, that doesn't mean I believe that we should necessarily have an atheistic society and government. I would actually propose a more pluralistic approach within our society. A welcoming approach to those of many and all faiths and lack thereof, but not a secular entirely. Not a atheistic, can't have any reference or anything, or nobody can have their personal beliefs or talk about them. I don't think that that's the way. I don't think that's the human way. I don't think that's what humans are. I think we're spiritual creatures, and I think that it's probably a mistake to organize ourselves or governments or societies in a non-spiritual way entirely, because that's not who we are. And I also don't think that's what all of this is, all of creation, all the universe, whatever words you want to use. And I find that oftentimes people just use different words for the same concepts too. Hey Sam, what's up, buddy? We're actually in the bunker right now. You can kind of see doing some late night talks here. But anyways, welcome to that and everybody else. Man, Albert, Droops joining the chat. I hope you guys like the look here. I feel like this is kind of a thing going on. A pink microphone, the only one I have. Well, I got these thrown up here. As long as it's something that's would fit under deep talks, I'm happy to go on about it. But we'll go on to the second one. We're kind of pivoting anyway. So let me ask everyone a rhetorical question. When you have a thought run through your mind, whether that be words, pictures, whatever your thoughts work, who is observing that? If it's a string of text running through your brain or a sound, who's hearing it? Who's seeing it? What is seeing it? What's hearing it? Some people would say that's one part of your mind looking at another part. Point out to me which part of the brain is the observer of everything else. There might be some theories about that. I really don't know. But to my understanding, that is a great mystery. Which part of the brain is responsible for observing any other individual part that may be responsible for XYZ thing? You know, here's the thing. They can look at our brains under MRIs, or functional MRIs is what they would probably use for that. That's when you have various stimulus and then they measure your brain and then they see what that stimulus does, what lights up basically, what has more activity, right? So you could take from that data that you get from that experiment a number of different conclusions depending on how you look at it, right? So one is that is your brain creating the experience you have from the stimulus, the perception you have. It's creating it, it's observing it, it's doing the whole package. But also too, okay, perhaps it's just processing and relaying, not creating anything, you know. Here's another example. Switch out the real stimulus for imagination. I think you'll find that your imagination uses very similar electrical data from your experiment will be very similar for imagination versus visual stimulus, auditory stimulus. It's using the same parts of the brain a lot of the time. I think that's important because we don't really know what imagination is. Your soul is an inhabitant of the body observes the soul. I'd flip it around. I'd flip that around. You said the soul is an inhabitant of the body. That part I wouldn't flip. The body observes the soul. I'd flip that second part. The soul observes the flesh. So the thought part, when you have a thought run through your head that's being observed, the thing you're observing is very flesh, mundane, scientific, right? Like what, you know what I mean? Like the agnostic or atheistic description of a human is the flesh, is your thought. That's all fine. The science is all fine on that. The consciousness, the soul, and consciousness and soul should be used interchangeably. They mean the exact same thing in this context. Is what isn't explained well by science. I think it's explained better by the thought we're having here, that the soul is an observer to this body we're in. And I think that has really big implications. That has really big implications, if true, to the afterlife. Because the scientific explanation, when you die, is like a light bulb turning off. If I didn't have the green screen on, I'd show you the light bulb. It's like a light bulb turning off, right? That's scientific explanation. That can fit in as truth within a bigger truth. The flesh of you, the thought that you're observing, the thing that creates that and has the pattern of thoughts that you think many people think of as their whole self, will die and turn off. But it will still exist within that soul that spent a lifetime with it, observing it, and shaping it, and taming it, I think. And I think perhaps that's the point. But I also think that one lifetime isn't nearly enough on a soul's journey, and it wouldn't have to be, so why would it be? And it leads us to reincarnation, of course, right? I think that you retain a lot of what you think of yourself now almost as a memory in your next reincarnation. Well, in between reincarnations, I should say. I think in between is when you're the most true self. In between before and after, right, of you. I think that's when all of it is compiled together. And you guys, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, the order of things. Laggy. Let me crack this. Ooh, sometimes this helps. Hold on. Anyways, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, cause and effect, the order of operations with some of this stuff isn't that important, okay? Because it happened in a higher dimension of time where time isn't the same as we see it. Regardless, every aspect of your life you're living now, I believe, you chose as this higher soul that's observing you now, knowing ahead of time every aspect of your life, and everybody's life this would apply to, what it would be like. And for me, because there becomes the question of if there's a loving God and all this, or if this reincarnation shoot, why would you choose to enter somebody who's going to have arguably a shitty life, you know? Because to this higher self, it's not shitty. That is a very fleshy determination that is absence of a higher truth of reality. If your timeline as a conscious being is infinite, the struggles of a human life would seem rather small, I think. You know, is your life terrible because you had a hangnail 3 years ago? What if the worst thing that could ever happen to you as a human in one life now is equivalent of a hangnail to this greater, higher you that you may well be if you're reincarnated over and over again? And, you know, by all means, those human evil, trace it back to Hitler or somebody, you know. If that's just one little piece of infinite beauty, right? If you think about this, think about all the human lives that have ever been lived on this earth. Think about all the moments within. Were there more good moments or more bad? If you had to live every single human life that has ever lived or ever will live, would you do it? If it was that, or none of them would live at all, none of it would exist, would you do it? Do you think there'd be more good than bad overall? And if you say no, what the fuck are we doing here? The fuck kind of world are we taking part in? Because I say yes, so I don't have to answer that part of the question. I say, yes, I would do it, and I believe that I am. In some form, and you are too. These things have big implications if they are true. For how we should live our lives, and how we should treat one another. It's not so abstract as to not matter in our daily lives. But I think it matters in ways that help you in your daily life. I think that putting your struggles in context of the bigger picture of good that it is helps you deal with those troubles today in the flesh. I think that this kind of thinking almost explains all the questions there could be. Why is this life so mundane, so devoid of magic, you know what I so to speak, right? Like, why can't I fly? Why are all these things not as good as they possibly could be, right? Because then we'd be missing out on something. As something that needs to experience all there is to experience in our time, we'd be missing out on what it means to be us with our limitations and with our struggles. Okay? Do you watch movies with no plot, no adversary to overcome, no struggles to overcome, no tragedy? Take the tragedy out of Marley and Me, you wouldn't even remember that movie. It has value. Tragedy, pain, and suffering to the higher self holds some value. And our negative judgment of it is rooted in a limited perspective. Now, does that mean we should be negative to each other? Absolutely not. No, because that's our story, friends. That's our plot, friends, is to realize these kind of things, and to realize it means we should be kinder to each other, and we should strive to create a world where less of us struggle less. But we should do it in a way that can be watched and observed and learned from, as we learn with it, as we learn how to make that happen as a world, as a society, as a race, as people. That is our great task. People have all these books and religions, and they're searching. This talk is boring. Thanks, Sam. Feel free to interject something if you like. The 7 Hermetic Principles. Yes. I've heard of those. I haven't read too much about them, but I've a lot in common with them from my understanding. But so, what are we supposed to do with any of this information? Well, for me, it does help a lot with kind of the pain we feel when we look at the world. And maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe I'm the only one that looks at the world, looks at the state it's been in, it has been in the past, and you hear about tragedies and whatnot, and suffering beyond belief pretty often. You're just going to live your life. Well, how you live your life can make a difference to you, Sam. Baha'is believe all religions come from the same source. I agree with that. They're right. Baha'is are right. I think they all come from the same spiritual source of humanity, because it's within us. We've done this forever because it's who we are as a species. We are spiritual creatures. That's what makes, like, animals are not spiritual, guys. They're not. We are. And I embrace that now. But anyways, it makes it easier. I know a lot of people that their main question is, why would a God let these horrible things happen, the Holocaust happen, right? Why would that happen? And because they don't get an answer from a mainstream religion, for example, a decent one that they accept, they believe there must not be any God. And that's okay. Believe me, from everything I've said, the life of an atheist is by all means something that the observer wants to experience and does. You know, that's fine. There is no eternal hell for us, friends. That's the good news, okay? It's all good news, actually. There is no hell, because no soul is deserving of eternal damnation. That's the key. That's the key. Because your soul isn't one person. It's a timeline of people who contribute good and bad eventually. And they're taught to be what they are, which is something greater than a fleshy human, right? That's what Unitarian Universalists believe, which happens to be what I am, is that there is no hell, and that all souls are unified with the divine creator, God, in the end. Whether that takes one life or many, that's the shared belief, is that God is love, therefore, I have been tracking the solar flares, Sam, and they're quite concerning. You look like an 80s game show host. Well, I have been hosting Prepperty, the Prepper game show. So that's what this jacket is used for. But also, I think I look good. I think it suits me. But anyways, well, those are the first two prompts that I had. By all means, we can talk about other big topics. Maybe they'll come back and connect together. the sun has really been piping off some big bursts. That's true. The sun is entering. We're not getting to the maximum until 2025, I think. Solar maximum, which means the time that the sun's going to be letting off a ton of these flares and CMEs. And when they hit us, if they hit us directly, game over for the whole big the show. The lights go out, okay? The lights go out, other things stop working, right? It's possible. It's possible. Honestly, I want to say you'd have warning because you do see news articles about solar flares. But the problem is it's oversaturated. You see the news articles all the time. Same thing with the asteroids and stuff. If there was an article that came out warning you, nobody would pay attention. I would try maybe, but even me. I see a new asteroid that's going to hit us in express.co.uk every day. You know, it does jade you a little bit. But the threat is real. Oh, no offense taken. Okay, man. But we're prepared. Solar flare or not. Anyways. So the sun, we're talking about space. Aliens are a good one for deep talks, right? We could discuss aliens. Everybody likes aliens. Well, I have a pretty thought out theory, okay, that is shared and supported by Harvard scientists such as Avi Loeb. Actually, hold on. He wrote this book. Wait. It's backwards. But you get the idea. Can I flip it? Well, here. We do this. Get effects. I'm going to take the effects off. There we go. Avi Loeb. This man. Okay, he agrees with what I'm about to tell you. And he's at Harvard. He's well respected. All right? Anyways, aliens. Okay? I'm pretty sure they're coming. I think they've touched us. What do I mean? They have not yet arrived, but they've interacted. And they've sent things here that have touched us. How far you can take that? I don't know. A pandemic? Maybe, I don't know. But listen, I got some things to back that up. Number one, boy, that hair. There was an interstellar, and interstellar means it came from outside of our solar system, meaning another solar system than ours, that entered our atmosphere, did not burn up, and crashed off the coast of Papua New Guinea. Mid-2010s. 2014, I think. It was kept classified by the government until this year, and it was verified by scientists to have been from outside of our solar system. It was anywhere from 2 meters to a bit larger big, but at least 2 meters, about the size of a nice space probe, by the way. But here's an interesting part. We know it came from another solar system, which is where aliens would come from. They know that whatever it was made of, it was harder than iron. Asteroids shouldn't be harder than iron, friends. But it was. It was. And it survived, more than likely, mostly intact, and is sitting on the sea floor, unless it did something on its own, which is possible if it's an alien thing. But they're mounting a mission. The Galileo Project. They're going to take a ship and a big old magnet rake thing and rake the seafloor near Papua New Guinea to find this thing that crashed into our planet. This is legit. This man is leading the project, actually, Avi Loeb, the Harvard guy, right? To find this. And this may be an alien spacecraft. And I also want to say the timing of this visitor and events in the world, right? But that's not the end of the story. Because we had another visitor. We had another visitor. Oumuamua. Remember that? Now that was actually called the first interstellar asteroid. Right? Except for the more we looked at this thing as it sped on by, and the path it took was very interesting, by the way, but we'll get to that. The more they looked at this thing, they started to realize this doesn't seem like an asteroid. It's flat like a pancake. And it is very shiny. And there is no off-gassing at all like it should be when it gets close to the sun, like everything else does, right? However, even worse than that, it's sped up on its way out. Keep in mind, on its way out, it's being pulled by the gravity of our sun. But it's speeding up on its way out. More than that, it came very close to actual Earth on its path to the sun. And if you were sending a ship from another star system, you aim at that place's sun. You don't aim at some planet. You aim at the sun and do what you're going to do there. Okay? So from their perspective, they could get a lot of data on Earth, or that was just the sail. That's just how it got here, and it was trash now. The ship, or whatever they sent, much smaller and not seen by our telescopes, went about its business here after its long journey. And Oumuamua, they're talking about mounting a mission to catch up to it, but it is moving very fast, speeding up, and they can't see it anymore. So they might try, in the 2050s, they would finally get to it to see what it is. Right? But those are two examples of interstellar visitors caught on our sensors that, to me, scream they're coming. Because when you go to another planet, do you just show up in your big mothership? No. You send probes. Probe after probe after probe. That's what we would do. Right? I think that's what they're doing. Total objectives, I don't know. I got some ideas. But the things I'm talking about are evidence that are not easily explained by any natural phenomenon. That not only do aliens exist, but they're interested in this planet and us. And that's setting aside all of the UAP stuff. 100% of that on top of it. The question becomes, too, does the government know more to the story? I think so. I think they do. And a lot of people would agree with that, too. Unfortunately, I can't tell you exactly what they would know, because I don't know what they know. They don't tell you. That's the whole point. But I have my suspicions that there's more to it than meets the eye. I think that if I had to make a guess, the government knows they're coming in a big way. And I think that when they're coming, still has some time. That's all at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe. But if they're coming, we got some time. And what we want to do at that time, I don't know. Would they try to fight them? I don't think so. I think that they're in on it. But also, I kind of feel, actually, I feel this deeply, that they're coming for good reasons. Actually. And I don't have evidence of this. I still think we should be like, about, but they're coming for good. And I have a feeling that if and when they do come, what would our governments do? They'd be hostile to that. And I don't support that. I support not getting vaporized. First of all, we would lose. But also, I support our first foray into the universe being one of peace. especially not foolish violence that would get us destroyed, because they got here. If they got here, they could destroy us. If they're interstellar, what would our weapons do? Actually, potentially, either way more than you think, or way less than you think. There's no reason to think that we would have no way to harm these creatures. And I would hazard a guess that we probably could. You got to step out of science fiction. Step out of science fiction. And also remember that we could almost do, like, if we put our minds and money to it, we could go to another star system right now with our technology. We just got to build the ships, basically. It would take a long time, a very long time. We could have done it in the 50s. Some people think we did, secretly. A lot of missing money. I don't think I've seen the Eternals. Best bet would be biological. That may have been what the impact was in 2014, leading to some biological playtime, perhaps. But here's the other thing you need to think about. What is the easiest way to travel between stars? Ooh. Probably is to go to the ones that are near you right now. You know what I mean? And we hear about these ancient aliens and stuff, right? Recent discoveries have told us that another star passed through our Oort cloud, which is part of our solar system, the outer part, about 70,000 years ago. There were humans here 70,000 years ago. There were humans here 250,000 years ago. We don't have any history of that time. But we were here. We know that we were here. Our bones are here. But that star was weird, actually. It's a weird type of star. It's just known as a brown dwarf. We think they're brown dwarfs. We think that they're something in between a gas giant and a star. I have a suspicion, perhaps, that was an alien megastructure, and that perhaps brown dwarfs are megastructures that we don't recognize. Because the Fermi paradox, which is the idea, the question, where all them aliens be at, because we want to slap them cheeks and we don't see them. You know, that's the Fermi paradox. I think it's because we don't know what the fuck we're looking at. We think we do, but we don't have any fucking clue what we're looking at. I think we're looking right at plenty of evidence. But so this brown dwarf passed through our solar system 70,000 years ago. That would be a pretty good time to mess or to visit. And if you're a really long-lived civilization, hell, say you're a machine civilization, a one hive mind, a singularity of artificial intelligence created by life forms that no longer exist because they destroyed themselves in your creation, or they uploaded themselves into the hive mind machine. And this machine, singular in nature, or maybe subdivided, but a singular thing, physical thing, a civilization and a thing, lives forever. Or perhaps they're biological and they live forever, because we're damn near close to that, by the way. Why wouldn't you take the long way and just wait? I mean, in terms of energy, just waiting for your star to get close to another one is a pretty good way to travel. And if you can predict how stars move, hell, if you can start to manipulate how they move, things you could do. The best spaceship is the solar system, guys, is the Earth. Within the solar system. Even without the solar system, the Earth would make a pretty damn good spaceship. Really would. Our geothermal... So, if a rogue black hole came through our solar system, resistance is futile, it's very possible. We're going to become the Borg ourselves, you know. We're going to start the Borg, if nothing else. I vibe with it. What else are we going to do? That's the path, right? The geothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean would remain active and liquid around them and sustain life even if we weren't in the solar system anymore, guys. Like, if a rogue black hole threw us out of our solar system, humanity would survive, by the way. We would go underground and survive. You probably wouldn't, but the government would, and they would make sure somebody did. But 2, life would definitely survive. That wouldn't wipe out all life. And then we would become a rogue planet. Right? However, that doesn't have to be our fate for all of time. We're smart things. We could still develop technology in our underground cities. It would just be frozen hellscape on top. But geothermal power could power the human race forever. They think that it will be I forget the exact number. I want to say at least 32 billion years before the Earth's core cools. Longer, by the way, than the life of our star. Our planet is going to outlive our star. Except for the star is going to kill the planet unless we leave. So we may want to push Earth either into a higher orbit or onto a whole new star ourselves, which we could do. Because when the star starts to go big, which it's not going to supernova, by the way, our sun is too small, it's going to turn to a red giant, which is going to be pretty bad. But we're going to have many thousands of years lead up to that. So what you do is you set up a series of asteroids to make close paths to Earth, pretty far away actually, but close. And it's going to just, each time it gives it a little nug, a little nug, a little nug. And then you do that over thousands of years, and you just put these asteroids in these orbits that will do this. And you got to do a lot of math because you do not want to get that wrong. You do not want to get that wrong. But you do that right, the math adds up that you can move the planet Earth further out into orbit. It would have to go out past Mars, but it could survive for way longer with the new red giant sun that we're going to have. Interesting thing is when we have that new red giant sun, the ice moons of the gas giants will melt and be ocean worlds, which would be fun for us if we're there. We already have nanobots. We do, and we're going to get a lot better ones. But yeah, so anyways, that's some aliens. That's some Earth stuff. Right? The things we can do as a species will be absolutely incredible if we don't destroy ourselves. He'll be around by then. I don't know. But let me put it like this. It's very possible that nothing else on this planet will have enough time to do what we did and get further. And I want you to remember that every day of your life in terms of the responsibility we hold to what we are on this planet. To be great, I think. To be worth all of this. We better not fuck this up. And if humanity dies out, I hope it's because we became something better instead of became nothing. Right? Whether that be cyborg people or hive mind uploaded whatever, I'd rather be that, be the end of humanity, than becoming nothing. All right, see you, neighborhood goblin. Oh yeah, Doomsday Iceberg, we're gonna be fucked on that. They just accept that. Just accept that. Don't live below sea level. Is my advice for that. But yeah, so what else? The Doomsday Glacier. Okay. So it's hard because it doesn't really make a big difference, because so many people just hear any word around climate, you know, about it, and it's like, cool your tits. All right, cool your tits. Don't put words in my mouth. Right? Look, the climate is changing. Sorry to be the one to tell you this. Sorry to be the one. It is. Now, do you need to attach all the bullshit you've ever heard about the meme climate change, the term climate change, to that? No, don't, actually. Take my words for what they are. The climate is changing. Don't add nothing. Don't add this person or this group is causing it. I don't give a shit. Okay? I don't give a shit because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. To me, reducing emissions, it's like, okay, the car's on fire and you just put your fucking seatbelt on. You know what I mean? Like, stop virtue signaling that you're doing it, first of all. That's nice. Honestly, to a certain degree, I agree with you personally that emissions has caused this. I don't care because the damage was done before I was fucking born. And no amount of reduction now is going to change that. This isn't the argument you ever hear. It's always, it's not happening, or it's not human caused, it's natural, or it's us and we're destroying the planet, we need to stop. No, actually. We're not going to stop, first of all. It's too late to stop. The point of no return is in the past. Okay? What we need to do is quite simple. We need to, A, get on board what's going to happen. I don't give a shit about the causes because it's going to keep happening anyways. What is going to happen is that the sea levels are going to rise. The weather and climate is going to continue to get much more unpredictable and damaging to people's lives and property. Those two things are going to happen. Okay? We're talking multiple feet within our lifetimes of sea level rise. Okay? Cities underwater. That is going to happen. All right. It doesn't matter if we reduce emissions. I bought some plane tickets today, actually, by the way. And on the little thing, it tells you how much carbon your flight does, which, by the way, if you wanted to know, Delta has a ridiculously much higher, like it was like 93% higher than a 14% for Americans of their carbon footprint. But who cares? But just by the way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? That's not to say we should speed things up either, by the way. No. What it says is, shut the fuck up. Both sides, shut the fuck up. I'm the captain now. I'm in charge. This is what we're going to do, actually. This is what we're going to do. You guys are going to shut the fuck up. The adults, we're going to go and we're going to build seawalls for places that we're not going to give up. We're going to evacuate the areas that we're going to give up. We're talking about low-lying. We're going to give up New Orleans. Okay? We may build new ports and stuff to do that, but long-term, we're giving up what is now the city of New Orleans. We're going to pay to relocate those people proactively so that they're not refugees later that cost us more as a society and costs everyone more in suffering. We're going to stop having people live in places people got no business living. No. Okay? We're going to just do these things when I'm the captain now, right? Because those are how you fight climate change. Matter of fact, actually. Relocating people, big infrastructure projects like seawalls, you can create reservoirs, for example. You can pipe water around, for example. Okay? Why are there so many people living in the areas that they live that's overtaxing the Colorado River in the West? Because the river is not going to magically ever have more water. That part of the country is not going to magically have more water. We have too many people, and also we have too much fucking agriculture in the West. The landscape and environment doesn't sustain it. It's never been able to sustain it long term. It's not a sustainable practice that we've been doing for my entire life out west. And it's going to come back to bite us. Okay? So, we need to scale that shit back. Because if we don't do it now, it's going to be forced on us by the facts of nature when there isn't water. But that's going to be so much worse for so many more than if we just scaled that back now. Put the agriculture somewhere else with more water. Wow, the boats live on floating communities at sea. Guys, there'll still be plenty of land. I mentioned my leg. There'll still be plenty of land in that situation. Just not where most of the people live now, because most humans live on coastlines. Most of the state of Florida will be underwater, actually. New York City will need a seawall if they want to keep that. We can still live in places like California. Why do we need so many people living in Los Angeles? A desert, by the way. As a society, what is the benefit to that? I mean, they have like Hollywood and all that stuff out there, right? Could that not be anywhere else? Like, just agree to do that in fucking Nebraska. Like, take all your shit, all your people, all your studios, do it in Nebraska or wherever you want. But not in the middle of the desert. That would be wise. And Las Vegas, too. And Las Vegas has its own slew of problems because they steal water from the natives, by the way, in a really underhanded way for their fountains, whereas the people who can't get shit to drink, that's rude, first of all. City of Sin, yeah, it's their water sins they commit. And I don't have a lot of experience. Conserving water, to me, is like a stupid fucking concept where I live. You don't do that. You don't care. It's all water everywhere where I am. It's great. Should you leave California? Yes. Look, I'm sorry. Both is for your personal life, and we could talk about a lot of reasons why people shouldn't live in California, but also for everybody's life. Like, people in California want to talk about how the rest of the world should be better for the environment. What about you? What about where you choose to live? Do you know how much worse for the environment you are just by existing within the state of California, especially within Los Angeles, than in other places in the country? It's a lot. It's a lot, actually. And it is things like your water, but also just the amount of bullshit that takes to run such a huge city that hurts the climate and hurts the local ecosystems as well. Other reasons not to live in California. And this is fun. This is actually a fun thought I had. We all know that Biden forgave student loans under $125,000 a year. That's the fun part. Federal programs, I don't think I've ever seen it adjusted for different states' income levels, right? So people in Los Angeles who like make $150,000 a year to then live in their car and struggle bus, or have 16 roommates and struggle bus in a small apartment, are not eligible for a lot of the aid that is given out because of these income restrictions. But $125,000 where I live, you're living in a fucking mansion. Okay? My house with 3 acres of land was $150,000. Okay? And it is fucking huge. You know how much, just not even the land, the house would be in California? Multiple millions. Not 1 million, multiple. Okay? Worse condition than it's in now. Add the land. Okay? But on top of that, you're earning so much money, making you ineligible for all these programs. But you're also in higher tax brackets. But you're doing all of that without getting the bang for your buck that's expected for you to get anywhere else. It's stupid. Like, no offense to anybody. But if you're trying to make that be your life, you have lived in a bubble and you don't know what else is out there. I do. It's great. It is great other places. Okay, it really is. Because you can work remote. And you have a history of making $125,000. You're going to be able to make that and live like a fucking king anywhere else. There's nothing special about California. There's beautiful landscapes everywhere you go. Everywhere you go, first of all. There's less struggle and there's more prosperity for you. And it's better for the environment, you know? The number one thing you can do to conserve water if you live in California is fucking leave, actually. It's crazy. And the money stuff I talked about, the same thing goes for New York City if you think you want to live there. Good luck. Good luck. Cheapest you'll find is probably between $2,500-$3,500 for the smallest, shittiest apartment these days. Because during COVID, the prices went way down. But now they're record highs, and everybody's getting evicted because they can't afford the rent increases, which are like more like double my mortgage is the amount of increase people are seeing in New York for a shithole. Like an apartment like the size of my bunker in New York City is going from like $2,500 to $3,600 or something or more. You know, that's what people are experiencing right now today. Okay, that's current events that are happening. That's stupid. That is so stupid. I'm sorry. Don't be stupid. And I'm not calling anybody who's stuck some of these places stupid, but I'm talking people who think that that's smart to do and choose that life forever is stupid. For all the reasons I mentioned and more. LA, San Francisco, full of homeless people. Up to the ears of homeless people. Full of crime. Every damn service is overtaxed. Well, I mean the taxes too, but I mean like they're not enough supply of essential services to meet the demand is what I meant. But also taxes are quite high in these places. But what do you get back for your taxes? You get not that much. You certainly don't get more than people get other places. Think about that. Your state taxes. Look at Minnesota's a decent place. I've been to Minnesota, climbed the Sugarloaf in Winona if you've ever been. Great place. But yeah, like, and then these people who technically have the same job title as me, I guess, of content creators, they move to Los Angeles to do that. You can upload your videos from anywhere in the fucking world, and you move to Los Angeles. I would never. It's a big thing. Like, it's a big, not fear, but like thing that I kind of would dread happening, that at some point I'll get an opportunity to go just visit somebody in Los Angeles. You know, as I continue to grow in social media, like, then I would be like, well, it'd be good to go, exposure, but like just for a trip even. And I'm like, that would kind of suck ass having to go to California. And I've been to LA. Don't get me wrong, I've been there. Okay, I'm not just talking about, I've been to LA before it was even as bad as it is now. Actually, there was a homeless guy there I had a lot of respect for, because his sign was straightforward. And this was back during Prohibition still, weed prohibition. He had a sign, not homeless, just need money for weed. I respected the honesty, to be honest. Deron, I don't keep track. It's hard to keep track. I have some people I consider my friends on here, you know, like Sam, but I think he popped out, but or Javante, but I don't. It doesn't sound familiar. That doesn't mean I haven't seen his videos. Great Flood, no, because there's not going to be one. First of all, I'm at the highest point in my state, which is one of the Great Lakes states, as you must know, but. No, it wouldn't happen. When I talk about these flood, it is a great flood, but it's like Florida, Louisiana, New York, the coast, you know, it's not the whole world. This isn't Noah's Ark, which, by the way, you guys want to know the story of Noah's Ark, right? The real story. I'll tell you. A long time ago. Long before the Bible. The world would be like nothing you could imagine. Because we don't have a reference at this time. It was all destroyed. At the time period I'm speaking, I'll give you not a date, but how long ago. About 20 or 12.5 thousand years ago. Okay? So roughly, well, we'll just round down a few years. 2,500, or wait, no. It'd be 10,500 years ago, roughly. Between that and 11,000 years ago. Or no, BC. It's a long fucking time ago. Between 10 and 15,000 years ago. Okay? It's hard to say because it's hardly any, like, everything's been destroyed. We were in an ice age at the time. 15,000 years ago, the northern part of the world was covered in ice. And where did that water come from? It came from the ocean. It wasn't in the ocean, it was in ice. So the ocean was way lower, right? Which means the coast was nowhere near where it is now. Look at a map of like the eastern seaboard of the US and you'll see that little Atlantic shelf in the middle of the ocean. That's how big we're talking. That used to be the land, you know. But during this time period, land before time, we could call it, basically, before the recorded time we have, which is about 10,000 years at most, 5,000 maybe is more accurate. There were people, and presumably civilization, because the human race has been here for 250,000 years, guys. And we have 5 to 10,000 years of history that we accept as valid. Now, the story of Noah's Ark and the Great Flood comes from that time period. Names change, translations, yada yada. It's based on the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a much, much older story from the birth of what we think of as human civilization in Mesopotamia. Okay? So what we historians agree is the start of human civilization. Keep in mind, we've already been here for more than 200,000 years before then. Nothing about that. But the Epic of Gilgamesh. This speaks about this great flood. The stories of Atlantis, okay, speak about this flood. There's other evidence. But so, all of the ice up there frozen in the northern hemisphere. Now, what happens? Well, as so often does, a comet impacted this planet. When it did so, it broke up, as they do when they enter the atmosphere. And it was big. Large chunks, and this hit kind of in the northern side, but large chunks hit either North America as well as Europe. And when these did, they hit these ice sheets. And guys, step outside, look up, imagine a mile in the sky. That's how deep this ice was. That's why, like, the Midwest isn't like giant mountains, because it squished the mountains, okay? It squished mountains. It is literally a mile high of ice. Now imagine huge, hundreds and hundreds of miles of that melting, and a lot of it vaporizing instantly. So you got two things happening. You have these massive ice sheets, which again is enough water to account for that huge difference in land, right? From the ocean now to then, which we know, melted into a big bowl of ice, okay? And then a ridiculous amount of water put into the atmosphere. Well, ice dams, which is what was this bowl we're talking about, break, okay? And so all of that water, you basically have an ocean sitting in Canada, above Canada. And then somewhere along the line, actually northwest United States area, it breaks. And it created an area called the Scablands or Scarlands out there. Look it up. It breaks, and an ocean floods the continent from the inside out. Okay? And it's just a wave. You know, like it will make its way to sea, and the sea level will be higher, but where it started, you know, it will be gone eventually. There's evidence that this happened from the land, the geography there, where like, obviously that tears up the land quite a bit. But also, they found mammoths, like whole herds of mammoths, pushed off a cliff with their legs broken, as if they were by the water, like they were thrown off by this impact of this water. There's other evidence of this. But so the comet broke up, and it did a similar thing in the rest of the world, right? But the heaviest impact was in North America. And we have evidence that human beings were in North America living and doing stuff at least 37,000 years ago now. There was a civilization under us, on our feet here now, of some form. We have no idea what it looked like, for many thousands of years before modern civilization and before this comet impacted the ice and flooded. But we know most civilization and people live along coast and rivers now. And when I told you to look at the map of the Atlantic shelf and how far off the coastline used to be, that's where all the shit was. And I say was because it was by the flood and then also covered in ocean for thousands of years. And forgot. Except for these little stories that we tell that were preserved and twisted and changed, but the core is a super profound event in our history. There's also genetic evidence that at one point in our history, there was almost an extinction of the human race. We got down to less than 1,000 human beings on this planet. From a higher number before that, we were wiped down to less than 1,000 human beings on this planet living in the southern tip of Africa, surviving off fish and shit we found, basically. Like, it was almost it for us. But we made it. Congratulations. We made it and we forgot. Now that story, in a different form, I think it's happened over, it's a long 250,000 years. It's a long, long human history we know nothing about. And I think that story I told you 12,000 years ago, maybe with different players, maybe not a comet, maybe something else, happened multiple times. And we forgot who we are over and over again. And I worry that we're come due to forget once again. But maybe some of us will remember. Maybe some of us have bunkers. I don't know, right? But religious or not, to me, that is the story of the Great Flood. Absolutely based in truth. But will it ever happen again? And this is funny because it's in the Bible, actually. It couldn't, right? Because how did that happen? Is because the ice sheet was there. And this comet hit the ice sheet. There's no ice sheet there, guys. It can't happen again. Water can't get, unless we have another, my battery's going low. Froze for a second. Unless we have another ice age, the Great Flood can't happen again. Not like that, not at that scale. And it looks like we're not due for an ice age for quite some time, guys. And even just like 1 week of cause wouldn't be that bad. Like, that was a lot of ice. It takes a long time. Everyone loves this suit on you. Thanks. I do too. I got this when I was working at Xerox. When I was trying to be a businessman. That's the job I quit to do this. So I would wear this and go to businesses and be like, hey, let me talk to you about your internet security and your printer fleet. We're going to get you a multifunction printer. It's going to be tits. And that was me. So anyways. Yeah, so I'm not worried about the Great Flood happening again. That's what happened. It won't happen again. Will we have a huge flood? A huge flood from the Doomsday Glacier? Absolutely we will, bud. All that ice there is going to melt too. Okay? It's coming from the ocean, not from the middle of Canada this time, right? It's a little bit different, a lot smaller, still pretty impactful. Probably not worth a 10,000 year story, though, in the end, I don't think. Unless it is the thing that ends us, which it won't be. It won't be, guys. Climate change will not wipe out humanity. Hell, it won't even cause the end of our society as we know it. Not directly. It will contribute. It will contribute alone. That's all it would do. If it was the only thing going on, we'd be fine. It's just not. It's just not at all. But it also can lead to other things going on, like terrorism and World War III. Very much, not entirely, but in a big way, the war in Ukraine is a war about water. If you know, you know. If you're educated on the topic of the war that's going on, you know about that strategic amount of water in Crimea that's been held off from Russia. That's a big reason for this war. Some would say that's the straw that broke the camel's back. That's the reason why it needed to happen from their perspective. I know I'm not justifying a damn thing those murderers have done. I'm just saying from their perspective, and it's all about understanding the enemy's perspective. That's why they were forced into action from their point of view, is water. Lack of ability to water, which is the climate. You know, water wars are going to become a thing. As the water becomes less and less plentiful and easy to get in different parts of the world, people will become desperate. And desperate people, say it with me, desperate people do desperate things. We know this. Crop failures all over the world, already happening. Ukraine, breadbasket of the world, for example. They're not growing as much grain these days. Desperate, hungry people do desperate things. Governments are overthrown. Houses are murdered. People are murdered. Houses are looted. Usually at the same time. Because people are hungry. You got kids to feed. Voldemort back. Did you really? I don't see it. I think you're messing with me, Sam. Because there's no food out in here. I can check the recording later. Now I got to keep an eye out for it. But anyways, Voldemort, if you read in the chat, is what I call any mice that end up in the bunker. Because I live in a country area, they get in. They ate one of my candles one time. I don't leave any food in containers that they can get to. So there's nothing in here to draw them in, besides it just not being outside, I guess. I don't know. But we've caught a few in here before. But anyways, yeah, so we talked about the Great Flood and how it ain't going to happen again, but we are going to have a flood. And Florida's not a great place to buy real estate these days. Let me tell you that. But so all of that shit to say, going back to my point about climate change, is both sides need to shut the fuck up and just let me handle it at this point. Because, like, I'm tired of it, to be honest with you. I'm tired about hearing about emissions and tired about hearing about, well, let's throw some money at solar panels. That's nice. But let's not act like you did a damn thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's fine. I want solar panels to become cheaper. That will do that in the end. And they'll become better. That's fine. But let's not act like you did a damn thing to solve the actual problem. Because you didn't, Joe. You haven't. Okay? It's just a slap in the face to our intelligence. But it is kind of warranted because it's bought by so many people, right? If they're willing to buy it, they're willing to buy the bullshit. Do they deserve the bullshit? That's the question, I think. Thanks for saying I look good. I'm doing pretty good. I get up at 5 in the morning tomorrow, and it's 11:30, so I'm going to keep going for a while. But I got to keep that in mind, FYI. California just banned electric car sales by 30... Electric cars, or you mean... I think you mean gas cars, I would assume, Rice. I don't know. I don't think you need to ban them. Personally. Also, you can't afford that. Like, individuals can't afford the upgrade. And if you're not willing to help them there, just willing to punish them for not, you're a piece of shit. If you're a politician doing that, I mean, that politician's a piece of shit. And that's what you see happening. And that, actually, by the way, guys, is probably one of my biggest problems with Democrats. It really is. The way, and I'm talking about establishment Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, the old guard, the way Democrats think to solve, and again, politicians, not people, solve problems is what I just described. They punish poor people into doing what they want them to do. Meanwhile, them and their friends are exempt from the rules. I mean, hell, look at the pandemic, first of all. We all experienced that. And that wasn't even just Democrats. But the poors are the problem, according to these. They're the ones that need policed and regulated. Rich people are a higher class. They can do what they want. Because I think Jay Leno, for example, he lives in California, I believe. He has a ton of classic gasoline-powered cars. Rich as hell, by the way. Is he giving those up in 2035? No, he's not. But is the person who has a 1996 Accord that somehow is still fucking running in 1996 Accord that's still running in 2035, using that to get to their third job, making minimum wage, to live in that car too? Is that person going to get exempt from the rule? Fucking guarantee it not. Guarantee not. And that's the thing. I mean, hell, look at the Affordable Care Act. Have you ever priced healthcare through that thing? Not affordable. More than you pay out of your paycheck for it, by the way, if you have a job giving it to you, by a lot of times, unless you have a terrible plan at your job. But also, if you don't have it, you got to pay money. So A, they call it the Affordable Care Act. That's just for you right there, because it's not affordable. 2, there's a penalty in it if you don't do it. And then 3, the health insurance you get is just private health insurance through this government-ran website, basically. Like, the Affordable Care Act benefits the insurance companies. It gives the insurance companies more customers and forces them to use them. The alternative is to get fined by the government. I think everyone should have health care, but the way the Democrats go about things, which is fucking stupid. Like, you're taking the people who already can't afford your affordable health care that's $500 or $600 a month, and then making them pay you for the privilege of being poor and not having it. And again, going back to the income thing, if you have California income, which means you're poor as hell, and you're trying to apply for the Affordable Care Act, so there are some adjustments for that, but I fucking bet you, people in California get screwed more than not. And then they brag about it. But here, yeah, it's good for the insurance companies. It's good for the insurance company. It gives them customers and punishes people who don't give them customers. But there's a reason for that being so good. Because they literally fucking wrote it, and we know that. Obama had the insurance companies write the fucking Affordable Care Act. By the way, Obama's cabinet was made up almost entirely of Wall Street. Transplants from Wall Street. And then he was responsible for bailing them out in 2008. Conveniently. And it was very good for them. Not so great for us. Very good for them. It's just funny, right? These programs are always good for the groups that fucking wrote them. And the groups that are the fucking problem to begin with. Let's cut past all the bullshit propaganda you've been fed and thoughts you've been told to have. The biggest problem with healthcare in this country is the fact that insurance companies fucking exist. Okay? It shouldn't be a thing. It's a middleman. It's a Ponzi scheme, basically. Okay? They don't provide any fucking value to you at all. They are leeches on you, the insurance companies. They provide no value and provide harm. And we could regulate them to make them better than they are. And we did a little bit. The one thing in the Affordable Care Act, and I'll tell you why this was in there in a second, the pre-existing conditions thing. Because before that, they wouldn't give you insurance if you had a pre-existing condition because they would think you would cost them too much money. The reason that was in there is to save the whole fucking bill. You put a little good thing in something. You give them a crumb so they'll eat the bowl of shit. And that's what the rest of the bill is a bowl of shit. Okay? The one thing about it, which is worth having, in my opinion, is the pre-existing condition thing. Which, again, you shouldn't even need to have because you shouldn't have this insurance company having a fucking death panel for you. And don't get me wrong. The people were manipulated and lied to and said lies and bullshit about it, about these death panels, you know? Because they were thinking that it's the government deciding. It's the corporation that runs your insurance company running the fucking death panel, you idiot. Like, we all have death panels every time we submit something to our fucking insurance, okay? My wife works for a hospital, which it is an insurance company also. They do both things, two wings of one company. So she has that insurance, obviously. And she's a nurse there. And she's also a narcoleptic. And so she needs a stimulant. Just, an ADHD med. Right? Just to help keep her awake and during the day and everything fine, able to do her job perfectly well. And she takes $300 a month, her entire career, by the way, at this company, which has been at least 5 years probably. $300 a month we pay for this medication because they won't cover it. And keep in mind, it is on the books for narcolepsy. It's the recommended doctor normal thing. It's the normal right course of treatment for that condition, pre-existing condition, actually. But who decided that we would have to pay for it? It wasn't the doctor or nothing. It was her insurance company, which is her. We fought with them. Didn't matter. They don't care. They don't care. They tried to have her take some other stuff, which some of it, the leftovers are in here. Good for us. That was not prescribed for that, not good for that, and just not effective at all, but it's cheaper for them. Because we're talking about Vyvanse, by the way, and Vyvanse is very expensive, if you don't know. Funny enough, I take Vyvanse, actually. Different reasons. Just, keep me sharp, right? Prescribed from my doctor, and I have I'm on my wife's insurance plan, okay? They pay for it for me. I pay $30 a month. She pays $300 a month. Again, to have the medication that allows her to work for this company that's not doing it. And it's not even like the company has an outside insurance company. It's the same company. If she didn't have that money to buy that $300 a month medication and went to work and had an accident, which thank God she's always taken it because her life would suck without it, then wouldn't that be their fault? No. It would be in reality, but from their concern, it wouldn't be, and that's the problem. But so, the Affordable Care Act had that one little good thing, right? And that was it. That was it. We could have just had that good thing and a bunch of other good things, but we didn't. So now, if you were to attack all the shit that makes up most of the bill, you're also attacking that one good thing that most people want. And then you're the asshole. You know what I mean? That's the kind of psyops these people play to make the world keep getting worse than when we started. For us, for them, it gets better. Like the Affordable Care Act made things better if you were an insurance company executive. And they're the only ones who can really say that, I think. Truly. But here's the thing. They added, and this is another thing. This is the ability for Medicare to negotiate drug prices is what was within this recent bill, right? That's the same thing. That's a good thing to do, right? But don't pretend like it makes that big a difference. Because A, it won't make a difference for many, many years, if it ever does. And two, it's not going to be that big of a difference. It really isn't. But three, you want to make a big impact with a single law, it's pretty easy. And if you know anything about insurance, I won't have to explain this, but I guess I will if you don't. So, legally end prior authorizations. If you've ever dealt with your insurance company, you know what I'm talking about. Prior authorizations are the death panels, guys. Literally speaking, the insurance company decides if you're allowed to have your medication or not. Your doctor deals with you, diagnoses you, prescribes you. You could have any number of doctors agree and do this. Ultimately, if you're going to get that treatment, if it's expensive, if the only way you can get it is through insurance, they decide. They make a decision, a death panel, basically. That's the situation we live in. And that's never addressed. Prior authorizations are never addressed. Another part of that, and this has happened to me, it's happened to my wife, is those take a long fucking time. And if you're on something like a Vyvanse, like an ADHD med, that's called a controlled substance. So you're only allowed to have exactly enough. You can't ever have more than your 30 or 90 days or whatever, right? You can't get it early is what I'm saying. You can't really go through the process early. But if they need a prioritization, which they need once a year, for really no reason, just so they can sometimes say no and save money, you have to do that. And it takes many, many days where you'll go without your medication, some of which could be life-saving, by the way, because the insurance company is still making up their mind and they're faxing things back and forth between a doctor's office. This happens every day in America, and people fucking die, okay, because of that. And nobody cares in government to address that issue. That's an easy fix. That's an easy fix. If you have insurance, your doctor prescribes it, they're a reputable doctor, it's fucking covered. That's the law. Okay? And put fucking in the law. I want it to be clear. Good night, Sam. See ya. Good talk. The narcolepsy medicine they cover, actually. The liquid stuff. The Rufalin. But Rufalin at night, Vyvanse in the day. That's the treatment for narcolepsy. What's therapy? Yeah. When I had PTSD after the camper fire, I went to some counseling, and they said that they took my insurance, and they believed that they did. And so I go and rack up some sessions, right? Come to find out, I had to pay them $600 cash because insurance decided they weren't covering it, even though they told me that it was covered. And so at that point in time, I paid what I was owed because it wasn't, like that person's fault. But then I had to stop going because I couldn't afford that, especially with this being my job and stuff. If it wasn't going to be covered, and maybe I could find somewhere else. But what it was is that company has a million little subdivision plans within, and that particular place wasn't in network for that plan that I happened to have, even though they thought they were. Which, if I really fought with them, they gave me a discount. I'll tell you that much. They gave me a discounted rate. Maybe I could have gotten less off, but again, that would have put them out when really it's the insurance company being shitty. But that took a long time. Hey, Siri. You need a neurologist if you have narcolepsy by law. Not even by law, I shouldn't say that. For certain things you do. If you want Xyrem or Xywav, you should go to a neurologist. Anyways, that's insurance companies, and they just shouldn't fucking exist, and the executives should be hung publicly. I'll just be honest with you, because of the harm and the lives they've caused for greed. That's not how the law works. I accept that the law and what's right and true are different things. That's why I really don't advise any lawyer pick me in jury selection to be a juror. Because I know what jury nullification is, and I will be doing that. You know what I mean? I will vote in a jury situation for what is right and what is true, not what the law says necessarily. I will vote for what is right and what is true and what I feel. When presented with the evidence, I will take the law into account. But the decision I make will not be to the letter of the law. Because I have a moral compass. And you're allowed to do that. It will get you thrown off a jury selection. Because if you're a juror, they expect you to... Did they violate the law as it's written? And this is how... They'll tell you how to interpret it too. Is it written this way? You interpret it this way. Did they do it? I don't play that game. And I'm going to look the person in the eyes. You know what I mean? And decide. And I'm going to think about, are they going to do it again? One. Does the punishment fit the crime? Because you don't even know the punishment. So you're going to have to kind of guess what the punishment would be. Let's say they're a murderer. Did the person they murdered fucking deserve it? That matters. Was it a just thing that they did that may have happened to be illegal? That would matter to me. I'd be a terrible juror is what I'm saying. I guess I would do it, but I'm going to vote my conscience. Oh yeah, neurologists, hers is terrible too, don't get me wrong. There isn't probably a good one that exists. They're a very short supply. And I find office staffs at doctors' offices are a big part of the problem. They don't give a fuck at all. Sometimes they do, but they're in systems that are so awful as well. And they're overworked because these insurance companies keep them overworked because that leads to them paying less. That makes me a good person. But the way that juror selection works, that's called juror nullification. And so if I start making that case to the other jurors, I poison their minds in the law's sense. And that's illegal, actually, I believe. Mm-hmm. Jury nullification is a thing, and I encourage everybody to do more reading on that. That's, I think, what we want as a society, in my opinion. It's not how it's set up. It's not. We are set up with a system of laws and codes that are to be followed, and that's why we have these other people to interpret it. But yet, I think that leads to us living in a bad world. I think that human judgment matters a lot more. However, there's a reason why that's dangerous and why that's problematic. And it's because we're not as good as we could be as people. And we haven't been as good as we could be as people. And especially people in power. I mean, even with the legal system as it is, judges who have been racist have done great horrors to people that didn't deserve it and didn't do anything wrong. And let people go who did horrible things. Because they were racist. This is just one example of where this leads to problems. That is why it is the way it is. And I understand that. But I'm not a racist. And I'm not making these kind of decisions based on racism. So I don't think a bad apple should taint it for the rest of us, you know. But I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that we have laws for a reason. It's because we haven't been good enough, though, a lot of these laws. And so I'd rather be better than those racist judges. Those corrupt politicians or what have you, you know. And people who write the laws, the people who enforce the laws. Just don't be like them. And you're already ahead. More corruption. I don't know. And also, it goes the other way. Like, if somebody did, or they're on trial for a crime that they didn't even have to fucking do, to be honest with you. Like, that exact crime. If we knew that they did XYZ other terrible thing and got away with it, and then they were in trial for tax evasion or something, yeah, they're guilty. Like, I mean, a well-known example, somebody who got off with something, OJ, right? Well, in the long run, but for the original thing, he gets off for that, and then if he was in court for tax evasion, I don't care how weak the case is. I'm voting to get justice for the other thing. That doesn't make me a bad person. That helps me get a murderer off the streets. The way I see it. They say judge not lest ye be judged, but I'm judged every day. It's time for me to do something, I think, sometimes, you know. But no, that's not realistic. We have to judge other people sometimes. I think it's when you have to apply that should be kept in mind. It's not all the time. But a functional court and system is important. And, you know, the things I'm talking about, these are true for most people on juries. They just might not talk about it so openly. But, like, people will vote their conscience most of the time. And if they don't, I think they're doing something wrong. The problem is it comes to false accusations. Yeah, that's the thing too. But there's a lot of juris doctrine, maybe, I don't know, legal talk that I think is good. Like, I like the idea of beyond a reasonable doubt, because all this stuff I talked about, that doesn't leave room for all the gray areas cases, right? The cases that you really need to pay attention and be like, did they do this? You don't know, you know? Like, all those questions I said, you don't know the answer. And you gotta suss it out. And you don't get to ask them nothing. You just gotta listen. That's two. Judiciously judgmental. Fairness, you know, fairness is important. And, you know, people talk about being judge, jury, and executioner. I don't need to be the executioner. I'll settle for the first two. You know, somebody else can handle that. I will if you need me to. Don't get me wrong. I definitely will if you need me to, but I don't want to. And I'm not looking forward to it, but I will if you need me to take care of that for you. I don't know. A lot of people get off that shouldn't get off. And I think a lot of people get trials that aren't necessary too in our system. Like Nick Cruz or whatever from Parkland. He doesn't need a trial. Like, let's be honest, like, most of the time, and that's dangerous too. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that things like that could be used to put innocent people in jail, you know. But he doesn't need a trial at all. He probably shouldn't have even been arrested, besides a chance to study the sick fuck. You know what I mean? But yeah, we do. We go through the motions. You heard about a lady switch babies in the nurseries for a year, and that's fucked up. Like, what does she gain out of that besides just chaos energy? There's probably a message in that about all those people who love those babies that weren't theirs as if they were. Now imagine if we loved everybody like that. It's obviously possible you could love somebody that's not your family like they were. If you didn't know like that, you could love a lot of people like that. That's a good place to end it. It's midnight, and I gotta wake up in 5 hours. So, also, I really gotta pee. I gotta urinate a lot right now. So, I'll see you guys later. Much love.